Tu B'Av is a yontif. This afternoon, Sharona, we did not say Tachlum for Mincha. Why not? Because Tu B'Av. So what? What's Tu B'Av? Jewish Sadie Hawkins Day. What is it? What's the Tu B'Av? Before we get to that,
it's the day we stop dying.
It's the day we stop dying in the desert. Okay. So let's talk about what Tu B'Av is and how it's actually a remedy or a tikkun for what? For Tisha B'Av. Right? We'll see how it's a tikkun for Tisha B'Av. So let's take a look at our sheets. It begins with, before we get to a sheet, to side number 2. There's a number 2 on the bottom, right?
Yeah.
Number 2. Before we get to that, the joy of Tu B'Av somehow helps us to cope with the tragedy of Tisha B'Av. Because Tisha B'Av happened because of what? Sinat Chinam. Remember the Talmud in Yuma says the second temple was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam. So what's the tikkun for Sinat Chinam? Ahavat Chinam. On Tu B'Av, the tribes, Chava, were permitted to intermarry. We'll see what the problem was. So there was a lot of Lonely Hearts clubs. Romeo and Juliet, the boy from Naphtali who fell in love with a girl from what? Asher. Right? It was a Romeo and Juliet. So there was a lot of broken hearts. So somehow Tu B'Av, when the ban was lifted and the tribes were permitted to what? Intermarry. So that was the tikkun for Sinat Chinam, Mahavat Chinam. When the tribes were able to what? Intermarry. Tu B'Av, the Mishnah in Tainus says, Tisha B'Av, 5 tragedies took place on Tisha B'Av. The first and the second temple were destroyed, right? What also happened on Tisha B'Av? Churban Beitar, 62 years after the destruction of the second temple, Bar Kokhba rebellion was crushed by Hadrian. Rabbi Kiva proclaimed Bar Kokhba to be what? The Mashiach. Even great rabbis make great mistakes. Right? So, Meraglim also. But I want to concentrate now on Churban Beitar, which also took place on Tisha B'Av, 62 years after destruction of the second temple. And the Talmud in Tainus tells us that Hadrian would not allow the bodies to be buried. So hundreds of thousands of dead Jews remained unburied from the massacre at Beitar. Only 3 years later, Ephraim, 3 years later, when Hadrian kicked the bucket and a new emperor took over, were the bodies allowed to be buried. And what date was that, Ephraim? Tu B'Av. And the miracle is that the bodies did not decompose. Lying in Beitar in the hot sun, they didn't decompose, they didn't rot. For 3 years they were laying there. So on Tu B'Av, 3 years later, after the massacre at Beitar, the new emperor allowed the Jews to be buried. And look what Jew gives thanks for. You know, you come to a Kever Israel, that's also something to be grateful for. Strange as it sounds. So that also took place when on Tu B'Av. Now, as Rabbi Aaron mentioned, the Chet HaMaraglim took place on Tisha B'Av. The Gezeira of death in the Midbar was decreed when? On Tisha B'Av. When was the decree annulled? Tu B'Av. Okay. Now, also the Mishnah in Tainus tells us a tragedy that happened on Tisha B'Av. The city of Jerusalem was plowed under. All the trees of the city were destroyed. After the Churban, uprooted, that tragedy took place on Tisha B'Av, destroying the trees. So what happened on Tu B'Av? On Tu B'Av, they stopped cutting the trees for what? For the wood for the Beis HaMikdash, right? To give the soil a chance to rejuvenate. Okay. So somehow, we're going to get more into it. We'll see how Tu B'Av is the tikkun and the kapara for what? For Tisha B'Av. Now we know that suffering and joy come from the same source, right, Reb Tzvi? They're not two different deities, are the God of good and the God of evil. That was, I think, Zoroastrianism, Rabbi Yaakov. They believed in the God of light and the God of darkness. That's classic idolatry. We know that the same God that what? Isaiah 45 tells us, Yotze or uboreh choshech, Ose shalom uboreh ra. Ani Hashem ose kol eleh. God says, I am the same God that creates evil. I do it all. Right? So therefore, suffering and joy express themselves in the identical way. When you have great sorrow, lo yaleinu, Reb Tzvi, a person cries. When a person has great joy, he what? Cries. Now you put the tears of joy and the tears of sadness under a microscope, Reb Tzvi. Can they tell a difference? The same tear. So why do we express great joy and great sorrow identically? Sonia, why? To prove that what? The same source. Both come from the one and only God. God strikes and he heals. He strikes in order to heal. The sorrow and the pain of this world is only a mask, the covering that conceals what? The hidden joy. There's a pasuk in Pashas Hazinu, Devarim 32. God says, Machatzti, I crush, Vani erpa, and I what? Heal. Right? So God afflicts a person in order to what? To cure him. The same God who afflicts is the same God that heals. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hashem is Yud-Kei Vav-Kei Rachamim. Elokeinu is what? Din. Hashem Echad. It's all one. See, does God wear two hats, Ruvain? To us it looks like he wears two hats. He wants us to appear to us that he wears two hats. Sometimes he wears the hat of what? Of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, Chava, which is lovey-dovey. And sometimes, Chas v'Sholom, he wears the hat of Elokeinu, punishment and terrorism, lo yaleinu. So, from our perspective, he looks like he wears two hats. But from his perspective, Hashem Echad, it's all what? Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, it's all Rachamim. Somehow, Ephraim, we can't see it. So therefore, we say Shema Yisrael, we go like this. Hashem Echad. Harold, Reb Tzvi, why do we cover our eyes? We can't see how it's all one. We believe it, but we can't see it. So I cover my eyes. I believe that it's all one, that the same God, the God of goodness, even when he punishes, tough love, Father knows best. I can't see it, so I go like this. But I believe it, Hashem Echad. Let's turn to our page now and let's analyze. We'll see blow by blow how Tu B'Av today is actually a tikkun for what took place when last week on Tisha B'Av, right? On Tisha B'Av, right? Tu B'Av is tonight. Tonight won't be like any night. Tonight, okay. Now, getting into the theme right after Tisha B'Av, Reb Tzvi, what do? We do Kiddush Levana. Why don't we wait till Shabbos? Why don't we do Kiddush Levana before Tisha B'Av? Dafke after Tisha B'Av, you do Kiddush Levana. Why? By the light of the silvery moon. But why don't you do it before Tisha B'Av, Chava? Wait a day after. Why bidiyuk? I'm hungry. No, Sharon, I can't wait. I want to eat my macaroni and cheese. No, I got to do Kiddush Levana bidiyuk. Punkt when? At the end, Madu Avalama. Madu Avalama. You ever wonder why? So to answer this question of Yaakov, we're going to what? Ask another, of course. In the middle of Kiddush Levana, we do something very strange. We say Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem. What has it got to do with the price of DJ? Middle of Kiddush Levana, right? You are praising God for the moon. We're not pagans. We're not moon worshippers. Chas v'sholom. We are praising God for his handiwork. And the closest heavenly body that we have is what, Reb Tzvi? The moon. So we're not moon worshippers, God forbid. We are praising God for what? For giving us his right. And why in the middle of Kiddush Levana from left field of Ephraim, we say, oh, excuse me, Shalom Aleichem with Hashmeichel. What has Shalom Aleichem got to do with Kiddush Levana? The Gemara in Sanhedrin 42, Chava says, whoever does Kiddush Levana, ki ilu mekabel pnei ashchina. Close but no cigar. When you do Kiddush Levana, it's like you're receiving God's presence. But you're not really receiving God's presence. You are praising God for his handiwork. The waxing and the waning of the moon. So it's close but no cigar. Ki ilu mekabel pnei ashchina. Says the Maral Mi Prague, when you say Shalom Aleichem to a fellow Yidel with a Shmeichel, it's not Ki'ilu Mekabel Pnei Ashchina, it's Mekabel Pnei Ashchina. Because every Jew has a Tzelem Elohim. Every Jew has a Chelik Elohai Mimal. So you say Shalom Aleichem even to a single Yid. Why do you say to a single Yid Shalom Aleichem? Says the Maral, because you're greeting him and the godly spirit that's inside of him, the godly soul that's inside of him. It's a twofer. Says the Maral Miprag, when you're doing Kiddush Lavana, Talmud Sanhedrin 42 says, it's Ki'ilu Mekabel Pnei Ashchina. Close but no cigar. But when you turn to a fellow Yid with a smile, some people just can't smile. They're like constipated. If you smile on a fellow Yid with a Shalom Aleichem, it's Mekabel Pnei Ashchina. You hear this? It's just amazing. So Shalom Aleichem, what?
That's why you like Rabbi Yaakov to sit in front of you.
Because he's always smiling. That's right. All of I had great rabbis, Baruch Hashem. I sat at the feet of the greatest. All of them always had a shmeichel, Shirley, and a twinkle in their eye. Their eyes was twinkling, and they're always smiling. All the great rabbis I studied by, Baruch Hashem. Because when you smile on a fellow Yid, it's not Ki'ilu Mekabel Pnei Ashchina, it's Mekabel Pnei Ashchina. So therefore, Tisha B'Av happened because of what? Sinat Chinam. So Motzah Tisha B'Av. What do? Ahavat Chinam. You smile on a stranger. You don't even know him. Right? You say, Shalom Aleichem, Reb Yid. So Motzah Tisha B'Av is the tikkun for Tisha B'Av. Sinas Chinam. Motzah Tisha B'Av, when you smile with a Shalom Aleichem and a friendly smile, that's what? That's Ahavas Chinam. Therefore, it can't wait, Ephraim. The macaroni and cheese will have to wait. Motzah Tisha B'Av. But smiling on a fellow Yid can't wait. Because the Havas Chinam of a Shmeichel, it's a chesed. You smile on somebody. He might be having a bad hair day. It doesn't cost any money. You smile on someone, you greet him, you can make his day. You have no idea what it means. It's koshish kein geld, doesn't cost no money. So that's more important than breaking your fast. That's the tikkun for the sinas chinam, the kiddush lavana, you say shalom aleichem, that is a havas chinam, and therefore it can't wait until you break your fast. But now let's get back to our papers, please, and let's get more into detail. Side number 2. There's a number 2 on the bottom. You see that, Mekimia? What? Because Reb Tzvi, you want to wait. Tisha B'Av happened because of Sinas Chinam. Right? So the tikkun has to come after the chet. You can't put the horse before the cart. The tikkun can only come. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you. I'm testing you. Can't put the cart before the horse. Okay. I'm testing you. Yes. Okay, I'm not there yet. Don't rush me. I got to leave something over for Yom Kippur too. So please don't rush me yet. Okay. That's a different explanation entirely. Totally different. Go ahead. The moon.
Sometimes they would find other 80 got their head
right.
So the month later
they wouldn't show up.
So therefore you got to give them a big
That's right. To encourage them to come again. Now look at side number 2. You see that? The Mishnah says in Masechta Tanit, Shimon Gamliel, there was no more joyous days among Israel. The happiest day on the Jewish calendar was when? Chamish Osa B'Av Yom HaKippurim. You hear this? The happiest day in the Jewish calendar was tonight and Yom Kippur. What's the connection? Woo. Somehow the Mishnah is connecting tonight with what? With Kol Nidre. So what's going on? What would happen tonight and tomorrow and Yom Kippur? Benois Yerushalayim Yotzos B'Klei Lovan Shulin. The single girls of Jerusalem that needed a shidduch wouldn't call up a shafkin. For Ruvain, you have a paper? Can you pass one to Ruvain? Thank you. It's important to see it inside. Thank you. They needed a shidduch. What would they do? They'd borrow white dresses, not to embarrass those who don't have. And even the daughter of the king or the daughter of the Kohen Gadol Chava that needed what? A shidduch? A shidduch would borrow a dress and go dancing in the vineyards. Why would the king's daughter and the high priest's daughter have to borrow a dress? No. Sensitivity, Judaism, sensitivity to the Zulat. Those poor girls that can't afford a nice white dress, Shirley, they would borrow a dress. Right? So you're going to single out just the poor girls have to borrow a dress? What about the rich girls? Where's your sensitivity? That's the tikkun for Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, we were insensitive to each other. We couldn't care about our feelings. So Tu B'Av, even the king's daughter, who needed a shidduch, and the high priest's daughter, who needed a shidduch, would borrow the same dress as what? As the pauper's daughter. No one is better, Chava. We're all the same. Right? Not from someone, from a rich girl that already has a shidduch. From the rich grandmother that already has a shidduch. Okay? Everyone has to borrow a dress from a girl that already married. Right? Even the king's daughter. That's the tikkun for Tisha B'Av, sensitivity to the Zulat. Not to single out the poor girls. How you think they would feel? So everyone borrows a dress. No discrimination. Sensitivity to the Zulat. That's Judaism. And all the dresses had to be what? Toivled. You see that, Mikimia? Why it have to be toivled? Because in the days of the temple, right, you had to be careful about the Tumas Nida. Today we don't care because we have no Beis HaMikdash. So all the vessels all the kalim had to be toivled. Not to discriminate. Some girl did toivel, some girl didn't. Again, not to single anyone out. And the daughters of Jerusalem would go dancing in the vineyards. Can you imagine that? They would go dancing in the vineyards. When? Tomorrow and Yom Kippur. They must have taken spirulina. They had a lot of koach to go dancing in the vineyards on Yom Kippur, no less. And what would they say? And who would go down there? Reuven. The boys from Mir Yeshiva. They'd go down there and they would stare. And what would the girls say? Look inside. The girls said, look but don't touch, Harold. That's what they said. Bachor, soy nechorei. Young man, lift up your eyes and what? Look but don't touch. Mata boirer. Al titen anecha banoi. Beauty's only skin deep. Yeah. Right? That's what they said. Ten anecha b'mishpacha. Look at what? At my mishpacha. Sheker achein. Behevel ayoife isha yiras Hashem tizis halal. Looks are false and beauty is meaningless. So therefore, young man, check me out. I'm a God-fearing Beis Yaakov girl with a nice mishpucha. That's more important. Okay? A good personality. Beauty's only skin deep. So the question, Mikimia, that Vilna Gaon asked, interesting question. If Shlomo Melech says that physical beauty is meaningless, how come the Holy Torah, Reb Ruvain, spends so many psukim describing the physical beauty of the mothers?
Because that's how they would turn out later.
If physical beauty is vain and meaningless, why spend so many psukim describing the physical beauty of the mothers? That all the mothers of Israel were Miss Universe. Toivas mare ma'od. Yefei ma'od. That's the Vilna Gaon's kasha.
Where's it written about the mothers?
Check it out. In Bereshis, over and over again, Lech Lecho Vayera, the Torah describes that all of the mothers of Israel were physical knockouts. Remember number 10? Sharona, number 10. But it's all it's vain and meaningless. Says Vilna Gaon, we're not learning proper pshat in the pasuk. We sing it every Friday night. Sheker achein vehevel ayoifi. When is physical beauty meaningless and vain? If all the woman has is physical beauty. Because physical beauty wears out. Doesn't last. But Isha Yirat Hashem, but if a beautiful woman is also God-fearing, Hitis halal, then she's praised what? For physical beauty as well. Since the mothers of Israel were what, Ruvain? God-fearing. Therefore, we praise them for the physical beauty as well. But anyway, this is what... Right, not just Sisera. It's all of the mothers saying that they were all knockouts. Right? Knockouts. Number 10. Remember the movie 10, Ruvain? They're all a 10. Because a beautiful woman who's God-fearing, Hitis halal. She's praised for what, Chava? For a physical beauty as well. You see, you have to know the Vilna Gaon. Isha Yirat Hashem Hitis halal, not for her God-fearingness. she's also praised for the what? You have to know where to put the comma, right, Rivka? Sheker echein vehev aliyofi. If all a woman has is physical beauty, of course it's meaningless, because it doesn't last, right, Sonia? It wears out. But Isha Yirat Hashem, if a beautiful woman is also what? God-fearing, tis halal, she's praised for what, Ephraim? Physical beauty as well. Therefore, the Torah praises the mothers of Israel. But anyway, on Tu B'Av, they would go dancing in the vineyards. You didn't need no shotguns, Ruvain. You imagine that? The shotguns were out of business. And the Bechorim who would need, even the Haredi guys who would what? Need a shidduch would go down and watch the girls dancing in the vineyards. Right? This happened when? On Tu B'Av. Why Tu B'Av? Why did it happen on what? On Tu B'Av. Yom Kippur, I understand. Yom Kippur was the day when God gave the Torah. So God chose his bride when? On Yom Kippur, he gave us the second tablets, the Ketubah. First one didn't last. So the Gemara in Tainus 29 says, I understand why Yom Kippur, Ruvain, is such a great, happy day. Because God chose us to be his bride on Yom Kippur. But what has Tu B'Av got to do with what? With Sadie Hawkins Day. You mind telling the lady to turn on the light? And also the air conditioner, if you don't mind, it's very hot in here. I don't want to fall asleep. Shirley, I don't want to fall asleep. You tell the lady, please turn on the light in the air conditioner. So what's so special about Tu B'Av? So look at source number 2 on side number 2. You see that? What happened on Tu B'Av that made it such a special day? The Talmud explains that on this day ended the dead of what? Of the desert. As one of the ladies said here before, that's the day when the Mesei Midbar stopped dying. Okay? So, what does that mean? If you turn your paper over, I think it's side 3, right? Side number 3, and the other side. Now let's read the English. This is Rashi on Tractate Tainus. You see that? For all the 40 years that the Jews were in the desert, can you turn on the air conditioner? I don't want to fall asleep. Thank you. And also the lights. Thank you. I'm reading side number 3, the first source. You have that, Sharona? This is from Rashi Tainus 30. For all the 40 years that the Jews will wear in the Midbar, each Tisha B'Av, an announcement would be made that instructed everyone to what? Dig. Each person would go and dig a grave for himself. Surely sounds like Dracula. He would then sleep in it in case he would die that night. Only the men. So every Tisha B'Av night, the men would say goodbye to their families. Reuven, did you know this? And where would they sleep Tisha B'Av night? In the grave. Because no one knew who's going to wake up the next morning. The next day, an announcement, we have the place, Reuven. Next day, announcement was made. Baskol came out, let the living separate from the dead. Anyone who was alive would get up and what? Leave the grave. Approximately 15,000 didn't get up, Reuven. Multiply 15,000 times 40. What do you get? Who's good to me? You get to 600,000. Approximately 15,000 times 40. So out of the 600,000 Jews slept in a grave. Dracula? You know the story of Dracula? You don't know? Dracula, this guy was being chased by Dracula. And Dracula cornered him in a dark alley. Yiddish Sharona. So the guy turned around and pulled out a silver cross. And Dracula said, Svetagunish helfen. Don't you get it? Ruvain.
It doesn't help.
Svetagunish helfen. Now, a silver Magen David, maybe. But a silver cross won't help you. Anyway, wir halten over here. Dracula was Hungarian, yeah. Okay, maybe a Satmar, I don't know. But anyway, now, so out of 600,000 who slept in the grave, approximately 15,000 didn't get up. This bizarre ritual was repeated what? 40 times.
40 or 39?
Okay, thank you. 39 times. I'm speaking around numbers, Sharon. Rav Soloveitchik said, Rabbi Yitzchak would appreciate this, he probably knows this, he said, people die only once. These people died 39 times. They never knew that they're going to wake up the next morning. When they went to sleep in the grave on Tisha B'Av, doctor, they didn't know they're going to wake up. Normally a person can only die once. These people died 39 times. Imagine the anguish of lying in your grave 39 times, not knowing that they're going to be wake up tomorrow morning. If not. Anyway, on the 40th year, I'm reading this first source on side 3. Have it, Ruvain? The second paragraph. On the 40th year, they did this. And the next day, everyone was what? Still alive. Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know, I called Jonathan because that light switch is not turning.
Okay, but as long as the air conditioned, this way I won't fall asleep. Thank you. It's great. Thank you. Perfect. On the 40th year, they all slept in the grave, Reb Yaakov, and the next day, everybody got up. When they saw this, they thought maybe they made a mistake with the date because they figured approximately 15,000 die. They knew the math. 600,000 have to die. So that's 40 years or 39 years, the time 50,000. Hey, nobody's dead. Therefore, they lay down again in their graves on each of the following nights on the 40th year until the 15th of the month. When they notice what happens on the 15th of the month, Rabbi Yaakov. Blue moon, no, full moon. Full moon. They noticed the full moon. When they saw that no one had died, they realized they had not made a mistake, Chava, with the date, and that the 40 years were up. God was moichel them the final year. God was moichel them the final year. They established that day as a yontif. What day did they stop dying? No! Sharona, what day did they stop dying? Tisha B'Av. But they made a boo-boo. They thought that the calendar was wrong. It's incredible. That day they established a yontif. You're right, Tu B'Av was a yontif. But did they stop dying on Tu B'Av, Chava? They stopped dying on Tisha B'Av in the 40th year. But they were famished. How do you say that in English? Famished. Look at the next source, Ruvain. What is unusual about this piece of Rashi? When did the people stop dying in the desert? No, Ruvain. They stopped on Tisha B'Av. So why not celebrate Tisha B'Av? Why did they go back in the grave for 6 more nights?
They weren't sure.
Till Tu B'Av.
That was when they were really sure it was.
There's a powerful message here. Powerful message, Ruvain. The Gezerah to stop dying actually was when? On Tisha B'Av. But they can't believe it's over. So they went back in their graves another 6 more nights, Reb Tzvi, for nothing. Yes, it was, Ruvain. Don't argue with the rabbi. The decree was over that night. Everybody woke up the next morning. They knew the decree, but they figured, no, it can't be. They can't be. We must have made a mistake. We got a wrong calendar from the funeral parlor. That's what they thought.
That's the difference between this and Lag BaOmer, when the students stopped dying.
Okay. So there's a powerful message. Look at the second box, Reuven. You see the second box, Reb Tzvi? Reuven, you see the second box? People put you down enough. Reuven, what does it say? You start to believe it. People put you down enough, you start to believe it 39 times. They don't no good, you're going to die in the desert. Awareness of Geula was only when? On Tu B'Av. So that's when we celebrate. You hear? There's a powerful message here. When the Geula sunk in, which was 6 days later on Tu B'Av, right? Our perception of Geula will bring it. You got to believe and want Geula for it to come. These people, even though the death decree was over when on Tisha B'Av, they just couldn't believe it. Chava, we create our own reality, positive or negative. They couldn't believe the reality. So for them, the decree wasn't over, even though it was over. A person can create his own reality. Rav Soloveitchik says something incredible. Yaakov Avinu mourned for his son for how many years? 22 years. Was his son really dead? No. But to him he was dead. So as far as he was concerned, the Shekhinah didn't come to him. Why, Sharona? It was all a farce. Why couldn't the Shekhinah come to him? Yaakov was not an Ovel. His son was alive. But he created his own negative reality. Since to him, Yosef was dead, then as far as he's concerned, Yosef was dead, even though he wasn't. So much so that the Shekhinah treated him like an Ovel for 22 years and didn't come to him, even though he was not an Ovel. We create our own reality, positive or negative. This is a powerful point over here. Let me get to the punchline, then you'll ask. When you acknowledge and recognize the Gula, then it becomes real. So the Chag Ruvain is delayed, even though the Chag should have been when? On Tisha B'Av, it's delayed until we realize and accept it. Oh. Therefore, what happens on Tu B'Av? The ladies ask the men for what? For a date? Geula is expressed by wedding. If there's a wedding, there's hope for the future, Rabbi Yaakov. What does a wedding mean? The men were so depressed, will never stop dying, and even when they did throw on it, they couldn't believe it. They went back in the grave. Women have a bino yetera. Women say, what are you, verstuck the cup? God loves you. Can't you believe that God loves you and the decree of death is over? How do you celebrate a future?
Get married.
Celebrate getting married. Not celibate. You know the story. You know the story, no? Should I tell it to you or not? I shouldn't tell it to you. I shouldn't. Another old joke? I won't tell it. Okay? Your loss. Okay. Where are we up to over here? Okay. Yeah. One second. Let me just finish over here. See, women have this bina yetera. They know better when men are depressed and it looks like it's hopeless. That's when the lady said, come on, fella, let's get married because we do have a future. The Jewish people are eternal. Don't think it's all over. This goes back to the days of the Exodus from Egypt. The Gemara in Sota, page 12, says that Amram divorced his wife. The chief rabbi in Mitzrayim was Amram. He divorced his wife. Why? Why have babies? They'll wind up in Auschwitz, the bottom of the Nile River. So when he divorced his wife, all the Jews what? All the Jews divorced their wives. You hear? You have the final solution to the Jewish problem, Shirley. The men and women are not living together. No more Jewish people. The men were so depressed. Even the chief rabbi Amram divorced his wife. Why have children? It's all over. And all the Hasidim followed him. Little Miriam. How old was she? A little girl. 7. Little Miriam said, Abba, your decree is worse than what? Stalin. Pharaoh. Why? Because worse than Stalin. Haman. Because she said, what, little girl? Because Pharaoh only decreed what? The boys have to die in Auschwitz, in the bottom of the Nile River. By divorcing mommy, what did Miriam say? You're worse because you are even the baby girls won't be born. Amram said, you're right. He remarried Yocheved, and who was born? If it wasn't for little Miriam giving Musa to the chief rabbi, her father, the lawgiver Sonia would never be born. And once Amram remarried what? His Rebbitzin, then all the Hasidim married their Rebbitzins. So the Jewish people have a future. So it's up to the women to have a bina yetera. Oh. Bina yet what?
Did that take place on Tu B'Av?
We'll talk about it. Men gave up all hope. So the Noshim had to take over on Tu B'Av. The men figured it's all over. The women know how to invest in the future of Am Yisrael. The lady, they are always raise our awareness of the Mashiach. So therefore, the women danced when? Ruvain. Tonight and tomorrow on Tu B'Av. They danced. Why? It's a Chag Chatunah. Because it's a Chag Tikva L'Geula. Tomorrow became a yontif of hope and celebration that the Jewish people have a future. Despite John Balkari, despite the abomination, despite Hamas, we have an eternal future. And that's symbolized by what? Weddings. Now, Chava, why is Rosh Chodesh Chag L'Noshim? You know, ladies get the day off on Rosh Chodesh, right?
Yeah.
It's a Chag L'Noshim, right?
I wish it were true.
Ladies should get the day off. You take her to lunch. You're not supposed to do malacha, right?
But then we should have days off from work, too.
Yeah. Just because you ladies didn't worship the Chet Egel, right? So get every second Wednesday off. Just because you ladies didn't worship the Chet Egel, why do you get what? What does Rosh Chodesh got to do with the Chet Egel? So Pikeder realizes something amazing. He says, Ruvain, you know, plan A and plan B. Plan A was, the Medrash says, why do we have Sholosh Regolim and the fourth Shmini Atzeres? The Sholosh Regolim are in the schus of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And the fourth Regel, Shmini Atzeres, is a separate Yontif, because you make a Shechiyanu, you don't make the end of Pesach. So the three Regolim are in the schus of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The fourth Regel, Shirley, Shmini Atzeres is in the honor of what? The four mamas. The three Yontifs are in the honor of the papas, and the fourth Regel, Shmini Atzeres, is in honor of the four mamas, the mamas and the papas. Pikei Releza says that God's plan A was that there should be a Yontif in the honor of all the Chiftei Kah. That every Rosh Chodesh should have been a full-fledged Yontif in honor of Shevet Ruvain, Shimon, Levi. They also founded the Jewish people. Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and the four mothers of the founder of Jewish people. So to celebrate and commemorate their merit, we have Yontifs. But if the 12 founding tribes, they are really our fathers. So God's plan A was that each Rosh Chodesh should be what? A full-fledged Chag to celebrate the merit of what? The Shiftei Kah. But when we worship the Chet Egel, God penalized us. He took away Rosh Chodesh as a Yontif because what? We worship the Egel. Said Pikei Eliezer, women never worship the Egel. It's not that they get Rosh Chodesh as a Yontif. We lost Rosh Chodesh as a Yontif for worshiping the Egel. You ladies never worship the Egel. So Rosh Chodesh remains a Yontif for you. Oh, not that you get it. We lost it, Sonia, because we worship the Golden Getchka, Golden Calf Disco. You ladies never worship the Golden Calf Disco. So for you, Rosh Chodesh is plan A. Plan A is what? A Yontif in honor of the 12 what? The 12 founding tribes of Israel, right? Now, what's so special about Rosh Chodesh that it's what? A Yontif for the ladies. This is the punchline. Fasten your seatbelts. Rosh Chodesh, Sonia, can you see the moon? It's totally black. You can't. The moon represents Am Yisrael, says the Zohar. The sun represents Umat Olam, brash, bold, arrogant. The moon represents the Jewish people surrounded by blackness and sorrows. It looks like we disappear, and all of a sudden what? We're the great comeback kid, Shirley. Remember the great comeback kid? We rejuvenate ourselves. Rejuvenate. The moon is a symbol of Am Yisrael, despite being shrouded in blackness, and despite being swallowed up by blackness. It looks like we're finished. The Holocaust finished 3 years after the Holocaust, the beautiful state of Israel. That normal? A third of our people were destroyed. It looks like the blackness covered us totally like the moon. And 3 years later, what do you have? The state of Israel. The ending of the whole world. The leader in high-tech medicine, defense, Nobel Prize in little Israel. 3 years after Auschwitz. That normal? That's the power of rejuvenation. That's the moon. Right? So, but Rosh Chodesh, Chava, you look out, starry night, it's all black. You can't see the moon. So the Jewish people saw only blackness. But the women realized that even though it looks black today, the moon will shine again. That's the women's Bina Yetera. When things look totally bleak and black, and you can't see any tikva lagula, and men were ready to throw in the towel, divorced their wives, even the chief Rabbi Amram divorced his wife. That's when the ladies, little Miriam, Abba, there will be a tomorrow. It looks black now, but we have the promise of rejuvenation. The promise of what? Of Kiddush HaChodesh, the power of Kiddush. We're able to renew ourselves, or reinvent ourselves. No nation having lost a third of its people in Auschwitz, can rise like a phoenix from the ashes of Auschwitz and build the model, the Chama, of Eretz Yisrael, the envy of the world. That's why we're so hated, Rabbi Yaakov, because we are the leaders in every field of human endeavor. It's the Jew. In little Israel, the most startup companies on the NASDAQ. Right? Little Israel. Despite being surrounded by so many enemies. That's why we're so despised. We have the power of chidush, to rejuvenate ourselves. But Rosh Chodesh is when you can't see any light. It's all black. That's when the lady comes with her Bina Yetera and says what? Let's get married. Let's build a future, because we will have a future, even though it looks like we won't. God does not go back on his word. What?
Did they drink moonshine at those weddings?
Moonshine. Oh, moonshine. Very interesting, right? Two B'Av is a full moon, right? What? No, but why is Rosh Chodesh a bar and a yontif for your wife, not for you? Rosh Chodesh is not a yontif for us. You have to take our wives out for dinner, Rosh Chodesh. It's a yontif for them. Why? Because when things look, Rosh Chodesh, you can't see the moon. It's all pitch black. Things look hopeless. That's when the lady shines. That's her yontif. Even though it looks black, there will be a moon tomorrow. How do I know? Kiddush Levana. That's us. We shine despite the blackness. And we keep coming back despite looking as we're swallowed up in blackness. We have the promise of Kiddush HaChodesh. Chidush, yes, Doctor? Bakeseh. When the moon is totally covered up, that's Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah, right? It's shrouded in blackness, yet the Jewish people what? We all shine on. Oh, yes.
But somebody had to see the moon in order for them to know it was Rosh Chodesh.
Yeah.
So they probably could see something.
The day before, they saw a little sliver. But on Rosh Chodesh itself, can you see the moon? No. They had to see it the day before, a little sliver. But on Rosh Chodesh itself, it's totally black.
So they saw it the day before and they celebrated Rosh Chodesh.
No, and then they went to Bezdin, and Bezdin proclaimed the next day Rosh Chodesh. First day. But that's the holiday of the ladies, not that they get it, they never lost it. Right? So you have to tell your husband to take you out to, and give you a day off, Shirley. Get a day off. I remember the mikveh lady. The mikveh lady. Shirley, right? The mikveh lady?
But she
Go ahead.
never worked on Rosh Chodesh any housework.
No housework.
She's the one who taught me.
Right. That's the yontif for the ladies, right? There, Amuna. Nachon. Now, let me tell you, interesting. What happened, Tu B'Av? Tu B'Av was one when they allowed our dead to be buried. Why would Hadrian not allow the Jewish people to bury their dead, Chava?
Because we believe in Tchiat HaMetim. Tchiat HaMetim.
Why do the Arabs destroy Jewish graves? Why do they deny that our patriarchs are buried in Hebron? They say in Kever Yosef HaTzadik, there's a sheik there. And they say Kever Rochel Imenu, there's a sheik there. Why are and they say that in the Morat HaMachpelah, they're only sheiks. Why do they care so much? Why do they try to uproot and take away from us our beautiful Rivka? That was Hadrian's plan. If I have a past, a kever to visit, I have roots in this country because my parents go back 3,800 years to Morat HaMachpelah. If I have a past, a kever to visit, then I also have a future. But if you can eliminate my past, take away the graves of my father, not allow me to bury my dead, and to deny that my ancestors are buried in Morat HaMachpelah, you are taking away, Reb Tzvi, my past. If you take away my past, then we have no future either. The Arabs are very cunning, like Hadrian 2,000 years ago. Why did the Nazis burn up the Jews' bodies? This is the same idea. The crematoria. There should be no zecher of a Jewish grave. You have no past. You're a gypsy. If a sheik is buried in the Moras HaMachpelah, then you guys have no past. You have no future here. You're charlatans.
Well, then they better prove it.
So that's the idea. Tu B'Av is when we were allowed to what? Bury our dead. 2,000 years ago, bury our dead. If we have a grave to go to, Shirley, that means we have a past. And if we have a past in this country, we also have what?
Future.
How do you establish a future? A chasana. Die. Don't you see how it fits? On Tu B'Av, Shirley, when we got our past back, when Hadrian, when he was dead already, the new emperor allowed us to bury our dead. That means I have a past, I have roots in this country. Then I also have a future. And the future means what? Get married. So therefore, on Tu B'Av, the dead were buried, and you people got married. Bizarre. No, it's not bizarre. A burial plot represents a past in this country. If you have a past, there's a future here. The future is represented by what? By getting married. By getting married. Isn't that incredible? I have a mishpucha. I have roots. I continue to grow. I have a grave to go to. I belong here. I'm not a charlatan. I'm not a gypsy like Abu Mamzer says. I have a past here, so I also have a future here. Raising a family, getting married. The women knew that. Men verstopped the cup a little bit. I don't know what it is. Women have the Bina Yetera.
So the women were doing the Maisa Miriam.
The following Miriam. Miriam represents the Noshim Tzidkaniot. And the Zohar says, Reuben, just like the Geula Mitzrayim happened only for what? Noshim Tzidkaniot, not for Moshe and Aaron. So the final Geula, says the Zohar, will also only come, not for the chief rabbis of Israel, but for you Noshim Tzidkaniot. Because you have a Bina Yetera. You can see through the blackness. You're not discouraged by what? Abu Mamzer and the Balkari. You realize it's only what? A passing wind. Right? All of our enemies, where are they? Where are the Phoenicians? The Assyrians, the Babylonians, Rome, they're under 60 feet of sand. All of our enemies are under 60 feet of sand. We're still here. What? We bury our enemies. Therefore, the Jewish people are compared to dirt. God told Abraham, your kids will be like dirt. Who are you calling a dirt bag? God tells you, Abraham, your kids will be like dirt.
Grains of sand.
Come on, dirt. Afar. What is God saying? Everybody steps on dirt. But in the end, dirt buries everybody. We will bury our enemies like dirt buries a dead guy. We are still here, Shirley. Where are the Phoenicians, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Romans? They're buried under tons of dirt. We're still here. I got to tell you the story from the great Panovich of Rosh Hashiva. The great Panovich of Rosh Hashiva. He had a rich Talmud in Rome. You hear this, Shirley? So he went to fundraise. A big Talmud of his became a millionaire, lived in Rome. So he went, and he landed at the Rome airport, and the Talmud came to pick him up. I heard the story from Rabbi Wein, so you know it's authentic. Went to pick him up. It was to take him home, wash up. He's tired, a long trip from Israel in those days, with a trip from, by plane. And it's pouring outside. So he says, my dear Talmud, you got to take me to the Arch of Titus. He says, Rebbe, it's raining, you're hungry, you're tired, come to my house, have a mansion, you have a nice meal, a hot bath, and tomorrow morning I'll take you where? The Arch of Titus. Nein, ich muss gehen jetzt da. In the pouring rain, hungry, tired, take me to the Arch of Titus. The Rebbe heißt Atmentin, the Rebbe. So the Talmud drives him to the Arch of Titus. He gets out in the pouring rain. Yiddish, Shirley. Pouring rain, the Rebbe is drenched. What's written on the Arch of Titus? It's written Judea Capta. Judea capta, Judaism is captive, destroyed, kaput. So the Rebbe said, Titus, Titus, where are you? And where are we? That's what he said. Titus, 2,000 years ago, said, Judea capta, Judaism is destroyed, Israel is destroyed. So the Rebbe screamed out, Titus, Titus, wie bist du? Where are you? On the 60 feet of sand. And where are we? The state of Israel, the envy, the gem of the world. That couldn't wait till tomorrow morning. In the pouring rain, the Rebbe said that. What? What? Rav Kahaneman, the Punisher of Rosh Yeshiva.
So what we should do is we should force all of these Hamasniks into their tunnels.
Right.
And plug them up.
Plug them up. That's right. Right? Plug them up.
And that's humane now.
Yeah.
We're not killing them.
On Tu B'Av, go ahead.
600,000 people were supposed to die.
Right, so multiply.
Oh, wait.
Who has a calculator? Yeah, go ahead.
The first year, 15,000.
Okay.
The second, another.
15.
Last year, there should have only been 15,000 left.
Why?
Because each time they died.
600,000 went to sleep in the grave.
No, and 500
And 5,000 got up again.
The next year,
It got,
570.
so if you multiply
No, but each
15,000 times 39, you get 600,000. So the entire generation.
last year, there were 15,000 guys left.
Right, so God was Meichel them the last year. Yeah, that's great. God was Meichel them. Tosfos explains in Titus 29 that the last year God was Meichel them. But they couldn't believe it. They were so down on themselves. God is going to be Meichel me? I'm so far gone. You got to believe in yourself. You know, tshuva only helps, Ruvain, if what? If you believe in it. If you don't believe that God can forgive you, then how could he forgive you? Powerful message. Right? If God forgives those who are able to forgive themselves. You got to believe in yourself. Right? You got to believe that the Gula will come. So when will the Gula come? When we believe it. These people had to spend 6 extra nights in the grave because they couldn't believe that God forgave them. Nebuch. How do you say chaval? Nebuch? Chaval. Nebuch. But only the men, the women didn't die. It's amazing. There were 600,000 widows that came to Pisgat Zev. Can you imagine? The shotguns must have had a field day. Can you imagine that? Hashem was Meichel them.
So what did they do?
They got a free pass. They couldn't believe it. They got a free pass.
Are the ones who survived and went into the land.
The
Fathers who
the father, the people between 20 and 60, right? They died. Anyone under 20 and over 60 didn't die, and all the ladies didn't die. Right?
But these 15,000
who are Meichel, they got a freebie. Hashem is Meichel. But if you want Mechila, surely you got to believe that God is going to be Meichel you. If you can't believe in the power of Mechila, then it's not going to work for you. It's a Gemara in Sanhedrin says something amazing. If a guy doesn't believe in Tchias HaMesim, he will not be resurrected. Is that a punishment? No! You create your own reality. Gemara in Sanhedrin, page 91. If a person does not believe in the resurrection of the dead, the Talmud says he will not be resurrected. Is that a punishment, Ruvain? No! It's Midah can. If you don't believe it can happen to you, then how can it happen to you? You create your own reality. My Rebbe used to say, someone who believes in Tchias HaMesim never really dies. If he has that belief, you gotta believe. Who said that? If you have that belief, it becomes so real for you that you never die. Because you create your own reality. If you don't believe in Tchias HaMesim, then how could you be resurrected? It's not a punishment. If you don't believe in it, it cannot happen to you. We create our own reality, positive or negative. The awesome power of the human being to create positive or negative. Right? So therefore, you got to accent the positive. And, thank you. And eliminate the negative. Right? Lubavitcher Rebbe would say, Tracht gut, es wird sein gut. Thank you very much.